It all began when the goblin chief died. Then, two soldiers who were present at the time of the leader's death started a battle to decide who would be the new owner of the weapon. Enraged, one goblin jumped on the other who was holding the club, claiming that he would be the new chief. Apparently, being the two strongest soldiers, they began fighting for the weapon. While the other goblins watched and shouted, cheering on the fight, the soldiers involved exchanged punches and bites. At that moment, one of the little monsters remembered that the chief had left some captives untouched, and they decided to go get them. But the goblins remembered that the guardian of the prisoners was about to return. To everyone's surprise, the monster they were referring to appeared. It was a goblin completely different from the others. Everyone stopped and stared at the mysterious figure walking past them, commenting on how much he resembled a human by the way he dressed. So, with the intention of finding the former chief's captives, the goblins decided to follow the guardian. Then, one of the little monsters said that some of the tribe's strongest men had already gone, and that once they started fighting, they would take the opportunity. Upon hearing what that goblin had just said, the guardian became apprehensive. At that moment, the young man rushed towards the captive, as he was hearing cries for help. Worried about what they might do to the victim, our protagonist quickly headed in the direction of the screams. Then, the boy spotted the cave where the captive was. Upon arriving at the place where the cries for help were coming from, the guardian found goblins attacking a young woman. At that moment, one of the little monsters stared fixedly at the captive. Meanwhile, the woman became increasingly desperate, believing that this would be her end. Terrified, the girl started screaming for help, begging to be rescued. Without intending to harm the prisoner, the guardian ordered the goblins to release her. Then, apparently, the group leader released the woman and told the young man that the chief was dead, and therefore, that captive would belong to him. Afterward, the strongest goblin told the boy that if he dared to take the woman, there would be serious consequences. Quickly, the group leader ordered the others to attack the guardian and kill him. Obeying the order, the goblins attacked the young man so they could keep the woman. Our protagonist became desperate, being ambushed by so many little monsters at once. In disbelief at seeing his life being taken by those horrible, low-level goblins, the boy became determined not to die at that moment. More and more, the will to live overtook the young man. Then, something unexpected happened. Surprisingly, our protagonist drew a knife and finished off one of the attackers, leaving the others frightened. Then, the guardian showed the group that he was determined to fight for his life and would not be defeated easily. Upon seeing the young man with a knife, the little monster panicked. Fleeing the scene in terror, one of the goblins shouted to the leader to run, because the guardian had a weapon. Exhausted after managing to survive, the boy frightened the attackers. At that moment, the young woman, who was about to become a hostage of those horrible goblins, thanked her hero, who seemed very tired from the battle. But it seemed that the guardian was too weak, and the girl begged him not to die so that he could protect her. After the girl's words, our protagonist, who had once been human, began to reflect, and a screen appeared before his eyes, informing him that the system was starting. Then, we discovered that the name of our protagonist is Lin Tian, and that he reincarnated as a goblin with a system after being run over by a truck. However, the screen that the young man could see only showed him some statistics, not seeming to have other, more advanced functions that were really useful. Nonetheless, after the words of the girl he saved, the boy began to gain a better understanding of the place where he had reincarnated. At that moment, the young man started studying that world created by gods, where there were many powerful monsters. Our protagonist emphasized that humans had conquered their place on that continent using their strength. However, the goblin into which the boy reincarnated was the weakest and filthiest monster in that world. Then, Lin Tian said that his stats were so low that, even among goblins, he could easily be finished off. Looking at the girl, the young man remembered that, in that world, there was a way to become stronger, which was by creating new life with the girls. Our protagonist stated that goblins had the ability to gain strength after mating and constantly reproducing, but he didn't have any females, and that's why they kidnapped girls. Reflecting on the cruel life in that place, the boy said that he used to be human and that doing such things to become stronger was truly despicable. Then, the girl interrupted him, saying that after spending a few days with her guardian, she finally understood that he was different and that she didn't want to live with those goblins. Lin Tian is once again surprised by the girl. At this moment, the girl tells the boy that when the night order comes to rescue her, she will tell them that he saved her, and they will let the boy live in the village. Then, something seems to frighten Lin Tian. Our protagonist says that the goblins have returned to capture the girl. So, the boy asks the girl to hide. Once again, saving his protege, our boy prepares to defend her. As expected, a horrible goblin, desperate to become stronger, arrives screaming as if it had drunk spoiled milk and needed to go to the bathroom. Lin Tian shows determination not to let the girl be taken. Quickly, the boy strikes the goblin with a knife. Afterward, our protagonist informs the girl that the humans had arrived to rescue her, making her happy. Convinced that it was the sacred order, the girl runs towards her rescuers. Then, Lin Tian suddenly stops upon seeing something unusual. Our boy comes across a very powerful human defeating several goblins with a single blow. Lin Tian is amazed to witness someone so strong in that world. Next, the supposed hero who came to rescue the girl becomes irritated upon realizing that those filthy creatures had torn his Sacred Order uniform. At that moment, Lin Tian sees the surprising stats of Loader. Our boy wonders if that powerful man is really human, as it's the first time he has seen such high stats since arriving in that world. Excited, the girl runs towards her savior, calling him captain, while Lin Tian is impressed that they handled the group of goblins so easily. Then, something terrifying leaves our boy horrified. It seems the man is not there to save her. Lin Tian acts quickly upon seeing that Loader was about to finish the girl, saving her again. Like a true hero, the boy grabs the girl, pushing her away from the captain. Not understanding what was truly happening, our boy wonders why the Sacred Order came if it wasn't to rescue the imprisoned people. Irritated, Loader says it's a disgrace that a goblin managed to dodge his powerful attack. Then, as promised, the girl informs the captain that the little monster had protected her. Unexpectedly, Loader becomes furious at the girl's claims, believing she was lying and trying to make a fool of him, deciding to finish her off. In disbelief, Lin Tian runs to save her once again. Annoyed, our protagonist tells the girl that she must leave the place and shows her a safe path. Without assessing the risks, Lin Tian decides to attack Loader with just a club. Then, a light appears coming from the darkness of the cave. Our boy stands still with wide open eyes. A woman arrives, asking Loader to wait, while Lin Tian appears protected by a magical shield. Then, a very powerful mage appears with an army of knights right behind her, telling the captain that the goblins seemed a little strange. Next, the prisoner kneels before the woman, calling her holy maiden and asking for her protection. Desperate, the girl begs the mage to save her. Then, the holy maiden asks Lin Tian if he understands her words. Hopeful, our boy finds himself before Freya, the temple's spokesperson so often talked about, and believes this is his only chance to leave that place. Then, the boy responds to the holy maiden that he understands her. Confident that he would be saved, our boy tells the mage that he wasn't a monster from that world and that he used to be human, reincarnated after an accident. Loader tells the maiden that Lin Tian seems smarter than the others, and the mage replies to her ally that the goblin could be a gift from the Sacred Mother. Then, Freya asks Kelia if the boy really didn't hurt her, and the girl responds that, besides not harming her, he also protected her and gave her food. As expected, the holy maiden tells the girl that, because Lin Tian is so special, they will take him to the village first and study him thoroughly before making a decision. Smiling and exuding confidence, the mage asks the boy if he is willing to go with her to the village. Believing it to be his only hope for salvation, the boy responds to the saint that he will accompany them. After Freya frees him from the magical shield, Lin Tian says that finally someone will listen to him, and he will be able to prove his innocence. Leaving the cave, the mage orders Loader to follow her. Walking with his supposed rescuers, Lin Tian thanks his savior for her kindness, saying he will properly repay her. However, something unexpected happens. Out of nowhere, Loader strikes Kelia's stomach with his sword. Realizing this, Lin Tian quickly looks back and sees his protege being finished off by the captain, leaving him in despair. Our protagonist, with the vision of a goblin, sees Kelia lifeless on the ground. Lin Tian is incredulous in front of his friend, killed by the one she believed was her savior. Then, the boy falls into despair, not understanding what was happening. Sarcastic and dark, the holy maiden looks at Lin Tian and says that when they reach the village, he better reward her well. A week later, in the village, the church bell rings to gather the citizens. Loader, next to the holy maiden, appears, giving a speech to the villagers, saying that the goblin's attack caused a lot of damage to that peaceful town. The captain tells the people that the little monsters used stealth attacks and cruelly massacred 30 residents of the village. Outraged, the villagers begin shouting that goblins are despicable and that humans and those horrible monsters are mortal enemies. Using images of the people who were killed, Loader says that the Sacred Order, in the name of the temple, purified the little monsters, avenging the village residents. Taking the lead in the speech, the holy maiden asks the villagers to continue praying devoutly to the temple. Reinforcing her words, the mage says that the temple will always protect its faithful followers, and the villagers begin praising the knights of the Sacred Order. At that moment, we see a sort of laboratory mixed with a dark library. Then, the holy maiden says that the sermon was a success, and that the villagers remain fools. Freya says that now the villagers will pray even more devoutly and offer more tributes to the temple. Next, we finally discover what happened to Lin Tian, who appears imprisoned with a muzzle, calling for the mage. Then, the holy maiden looks at her prisoner without showing any compassion. Our protagonist, now missing one eye and full of rage, calls Freya a wretch. At that moment, the holy maiden stares at Lin Tian, imprisoned on a wall covered with experiment marks. Ephraia says she's impressed by the boy's vitality, seeing that he's still alive, and believes that's why the temple cannot eradicate the goblins from the continent. Then, the Holy Maiden decides to inject a more potent poison into Lin Tian to evaluate the results. Our protagonist seems unable to bear the constant suffering from the experiments any longer. Desperate, Lin Tian remembers that the Sacred Order deceived everyone and killed Kelia, and he asks the Holy Maiden if that was what human justice meant. Then, the boy is suddenly struck by a branch to his chin. Furious with Lin Tian's allegations, the Holy Maiden says it's strange for such a weak and despicable creature to dare question human justice. Then, Ephraia, showing her true nature, says that goblins are nothing more than insects on that continent, and just the fact that she's speaking to him is already a great favor. Casting a spell on Lin Tian, the Holy Maiden says he should show gratitude and use his little body to contribute to human experiments and the Sacred Order. Then, the Holy Maiden creates a magic circle that begins draining the boy's energy. Lin seems almost powerless to resist that torture. Our protagonist begins to blame himself for maintaining his human compassion, even after reincarnating from a human into a low-level goblin, believing that people would be just. Tian recalls that after being taken to the village, Loder and Ephraia tortured him and conducted various experiments on his body, ignoring every word he said. Unfortunately, after so much torture, the boy couldn't resist any longer and was finished off by the sadistic Holy Maiden. Crossing over after death, Lin Tian says that if he could try again, he would never trust humans, and if possible, he would crush their bones. Then, something unexpected happens as the boy thinks about what he would do if he could reincarnate again. At that moment, it seems Lin Tian has gone to a virtual world, and he wonders if he's still alive. To the boy's surprise, the Goblin Life Simulation system is activated and asks him if he wishes to reincarnate again. Trying to understand what was happening, Lin Tian concludes that this must be his personal system, and it only activates after his death. Our protagonist is incredulous to realize that he could reincarnate again, but that he would return to the beginning as a low-level goblin. Lin Tian asks the system what yes and no represent, and he is told that if he chooses no, he will be finished, and if he chooses yes, he can return to a week ago with his current memory. Then, finally, our boy understands that the chance he had been asking for was granted to him. Our protagonist becomes very enthusiastic, realizing that he can now take revenge on Loder and Ephraia. Lin Tian, ecstatic with thoughts of revenge, chooses the yes option. At that moment, the system initiates the Goblin Life reboot process. Our boy, furious at having been betrayed by humans, is truly determined to return and take his revenge. In addition to reincarnating, Lin Tian is also informed that the system has slightly strengthened him. Then, the boy is pleased and says that even if the strengthening is small, it's better than nothing. Next, the system informs Lin that the danger is not over and that the Sacred Order is about to catch up to him. If he dies again, it will not be possible to resurrect. Tian asks the system what it can do, and he is informed that it is possible to simulate future event predictions with different outcomes every 24 hours. Our boy grows more enthusiastic upon learning that each simulation grants him points that he can exchange for items, and that he will be able to see the future. Without wasting any time, Lin Tian asks the system to start the life simulation immediately. Obeying the boy's request, the system begins offering him some simulation options to escape from the cave. If Lin Tian chooses the first one, he should warn the other goblins and join forces to fight Loder and his men, which would earn him 10 points. In the second option, the boy should abandon the other little monsters and escape, which would earn him 5 points. If he chooses the last one, he would have to hide in the cave and pray that Loder and his men don't find him. But unfortunately, this option wouldn't grant him any points. Lin Tian stands still, trying to choose the best option. Cautiously, our boy analyzes the first option, convinced that even with all the goblins, they wouldn't be able to face Loder alone, and that escaping would be the best choice. Even after a quick analysis, Lin Tian decides to test all the options and pick the one that gives him the most points in order to try to acquire a weapon from the exchange shop. Unfortunately, after testing the first option, both he and the goblins were easily defeated by Loder, earning him 10 points. As expected, after conducting his analysis, Lin Tian concludes that he cannot trust the little monsters to survive, but he is pleased with the points earned. Confident, our boy asks the system to open the exchange shop. Lin Tian then comes across several powerful weapons available, but they require many points to acquire. Then, the boy spots a light and fast elven dagger, which costs exactly the 10 points he earned from the simulation. Lin Tian decides to acquire the weapon, which gives him 10% speed and 15% strength, and says that the dagger is very sharp and, by hitting an enemy's vital point, could be fatal. Concerned about his friend, our boy asks the system why he didn't see Kelia in the simulation and asks where the girl went. He is then informed that after his reincarnation, some details of the timeline changed, And in this new life, the girl wasn't captured by the goblins and lives happily in the village. Lin Tian seems very surprised by this information. Our protagonist is genuinely happy after learning that his friend is safe. Content that Kelia is alive and out of danger. The boy says that he has fulfilled his promise and will now focus on his other concerns. Analyzing the best path, Lin Tian runs toward the cave's exit, affirming that it's the best option because the weakest guards are there. One of the soldiers standing guard outside was talking about how much he hated goblins, while the other asked for patience, saying it was an easy job. At that moment, our boy hears voices of people talking near where he was. Lin Tian then discovers that Loder's plan was indeed to eliminate all the girls who had been kidnapped and were in the cave, and that was the mission of the two guards. Our protagonist becomes more certain that his revenge is justified upon seeing that the Sacred Order is willing to kill innocent people to maintain its influence. With this information, the boy believes that his only choice is to fight, because if they do this to humans, imagine what they would do to a simple goblin. Preparing a trap for the guards, our boy imitates the voice of a girl and asks for help from inside the cave. Obeying Lord Loder's orders, the soldier prepares to finish off the supposed girl who was about to escape captivity. Like a treacherous rat, smiling, the guard says that the girl can come out without fear and that he is there to take her back to the village. Then, to the surprise of the nice soldier, our boy strikes him with his super dagger. Filled with hatred against humans, Lin Tian hits the guard without showing compassion, saying that from that moment on, it would be the goblin's revenge. At that moment, the soldier struck by the boy begins trembling in pain. Then the other guard moves toward his companion, asking why he was taking so long, without realizing what had actually happened. Smiling and determined to continue his revenge, Lin Tian feels enthusiastic seeing that the plan is working. Quickly, our boy moves towards the other guard with his super sharp dagger, leaving him desperate, not understanding what is happening. Then Lin Tian strikes the soldier in the face with his hand, causing him to fall to the ground. With great agility and filled with rage, the boy jumps on the guard, attacking him. As Lin Tian had imagined, the dagger is really very sharp, and the boy manages to make a deep cut on the soldier while attacking him. The injured guard then falls to the ground in despair. Believing it to be the end, the soldier asks Lin Tian if he can speak the human language. At that moment, the guard pleads for mercy and asks the boy not to kill him. Trying to win Lin's compassion, the soldier decides to test the boy's emotions by showing a picture of his family, saying they are waiting for him at home. Realizing that the boy hesitated in killing him and that he understood his language, the guard says that Tian is very intelligent and that he was just following the Sacred Order's commands. The soldier then tries to gain the boy's trust by saying he would give him gold and fresh, young women, all while planning to draw his weapon and attack. Thinking Lin Tian was distracted by his promises, the guard, like a treacherous rat, attacks the boy, calling him a stupid beast. However, to the soldier's surprise, something unexpected happens. Using all his agility and his powerful dagger, Lin Tian strikes the treacherous rat before he could even reach him. Then the boy begins the first part of his revenge. Our protagonist is truly determined to take full advantage of his last chance at reincarnation in that world where humans betrayed him. Lin Tian is becoming more confident that his revenge will succeed. Next, the boy hears Loder's voice nearby, believing the captain is coming to capture him. The boy then starts putting his plan into action and decides to take the guard's clothes. Leaving the scene, holding the soldier's outfit in his hand, Lin Tian says that soon he will find Loder and Ephraia. At that moment, the captain and the holy maiden arrive at the place where the guards were defeated by the boy. Loder wonders if it's possible that the goblins killed those soldiers. Ephraia believes that a little monster capable of defeating two guards might be a mutant. Then the captain replies to his ally that if this is true and the information spreads throughout the village, the consequences could be catastrophic. Stepping on the guard, Loder shows his fury, saying that he is useless for failing to defeat a single goblin. Meanwhile, the sadistic Ephraia becomes excited, imagining that it could be a mutant little monster, saying it will be very fun. With a dark look and seemingly excited by the idea of it being a different goblin, the holy maiden says that if they manage to capture him, she will have a lot of fun with it. At this moment, we see the forest where our boy managed to escape. Lin Tian feels relieved, seeing that finally his plan is working, and he managed to escape from that cave. While eating, the boy says he will deal with his enemies the goblin way, using ferocity to strengthen his stats and increase his influence. With a dark look and filled with rage, Lin says that in this life he will make every man's only desire be death, and every woman will desire him and cry at his feet. Observing the bushes moving, our boy wonders if Loder and his group haven't given up on capturing him at that moment. Then Lin Tian sees a hooded figure emerging from behind the bushes. Quickly, the boy attacks the intruder to avoid giving him a chance to counterattack. Startled by the boy, the person stumbles over a rock. Lin Tian is surprised to see that it's a goblin. Our protagonist cannot believe what he's witnessing. Lin Tian becomes even more incredulous to see that this goblin could speak and express itself like him. The boy then decides not to lower his guard, as it's an intruder who is hiding. Then something surprises our boy even more. Lin Tian wonders why that goblin has feminine features, given that there are only males, and that's why they can only reproduce with other species. Frightened by the boy, the female goblin pleads for him not to hurt her, saying she was only there to fetch water, which makes the boy suspicious. Our protagonist begins to wonder how it's possible for a little monster to speak complete sentences. At that moment, Lin Tian views the status of that strange girl and sees that if a male mates with a female of the same species, he will become a goblin god. The boy is amazed to realize that if he mates with that girl, it would be the perfect opportunity to become strong enough to face his enemies. Desperate and fearing for her life, the girl tells Lin Tian that she was sent by her boss to fetch water, and if she doesn't return with what he asked for, she will be beaten until she is killed. Next, the girl is surprised to see that a goblin is talking to her and calming her down. Lin Tian tells the girl that if she keeps crying, she will attract Loader and his group to them. At that moment, the astonished girl asks the boy if he can speak like her, and the boy replies that he can. Then Lin Tian recalls that goblins don't speak coherently, which is why that girl didn't talk much with the members of her tribe. Grateful, the girl tells the boy that he is very kind and that the little monsters usually hit and insult her, and she asks if the boy wants to go with her to the village. Once again, Lin Tian sees another opportunity to strengthen himself. Our protagonist is excited by the information and asks the girl if there really is a goblin tribe near where they are. Cautious, Lin Tian is unsure if Loader and his group are still following him, and prioritizing finding a safe place, he believes it's not the best time. So, continuing with his revenge plan and seeking to grow stronger, our boy tells the girl that he will accompany her to her goblin village. Focused on his goals, the boy says he was worried about where he could find subordinates to recruit and asks the girl to take him to her tribe. At that moment, we see the village the girl had mentioned. Upon seeing a stranger approaching, the goblins become curious, watching from a distance. Then, irrationally, the little monsters start mocking Lin Tian's clothes for being dressed like a human and call him a strange creature. Lin Tian sees a good opportunity to start his revenge plans with that tribe. Determined to gain the goblins' trust, our boy says he is there to join them and asks to speak with the leader. Next, the little monsters mock Lin Tian, saying that the chief isn't someone he can just meet whenever he wants. Annoyed, the boy's new friend yells at the goblins, saying that the boy isn't a bad person and asks them not to act rashly. At that moment, someone asks why the whole tribe is gathered in one place making all that noise. Lin Tian becomes excited when he sees that the goblin chief has finally appeared. Then the leader arrives, furious, asking who was making all that noise in his tribe. Our protagonist quickly checks the stats of the little monster's leader. Lin Tian seems surprised after seeing the leader's stats, realizing there is a high-level goblin in that tribe. At that moment, the chief asks the girl if she brought the stranger, and the girl replies that she brought the boy to the village because he had nowhere else to go. Next, the leader is very pleased and thanks the girl. Surprisingly, the chief orders the goblins to finish off Lin Tian and eat him, leaving the girl desperate as the little monsters advance toward the boy. Quickly, our protagonist draws his dagger. Then Lin Tian shows his knife to the leader and the goblins, saying that he knows how to make weapons like that and that if they let him join the tribe, he could make them all stronger. Interested in what the boy just said, the chief orders them not to attack. Next, the leader walks toward our boy. Ambitious and thinking of getting stronger, the chief says Lin Tian doesn't seem to be lying and asks him what kind of weapons he knows how to make. Putting his plan into action, the boy tells the leader that if they find ore, he can make simple iron weapons and, with time, create something more powerful. To convince him, the boy tells the chief that with those daggers, they could defeat monsters and even humans. After Lin Tian's statements, all the goblins become happy, saying they'll have meat and won't need to hide in the forest anymore, and that they prefer fresh elves for their meals. Ambitious, the leader tells the boy that he will give him a chance, and orders them to find iron ore in 3 days to make the weapons. If he fails, he will be finished. Pointing to the girl, the chief says that she will go with him, and if Lin Tian doesn't succeed, she will also meet the same end. Then the leader leaves after giving his orders. Lin Tian hugs the girl and says that the old man is very cruel for not sparing even his companions, and that he will need to make some weapons to buy time and get stronger. At that moment, our boy heads toward his goal. Accompanied by some goblins and his new friend, the boy walks in search of iron ore as he was ordered. Then the girl asks them to wait, and says she is very tired after walking all day. Irritated, one of the little monsters kicks the girl. Furious, the goblin hits the girl, calling her ugly and says that if she doesn't find ore, he will finish her off, while the female goblin says she will stop complaining. Irrational, the other goblins also start hitting the girl, calling her lazy, laughing, and saying they will finish her off. Unexpectedly, our boy throws a rock at the head of one of the little monsters who was kicking the girl. Defending his new friend, Lin Tian tells the goblins that he brought them to find iron ore, not to fight. Irritated with the little monsters, our boy says that he has already explained what they should be looking for, and if they want to live, they should start obeying him. Otherwise, they will all be finished by his dagger. When threatened by Lin Tian, the little monsters tremble with fear. The goblins then move away from the girl, saying the boy will finish them with the iron weapons, and they threaten him, saying that when he finishes, the boss will not forgive him. Lin Tian becomes apprehensive, knowing that the little monsters are right. Even if he completes the task in 3 days, it will only be a matter of time before he is finished. Looking at the girl, our protagonist recalls that if a male goblin mates with a female of the same species, he will become a legendary divine goblin. Seeing his new friend trembling with fear, our boy asks her not to cry, calling her Moon. Lin Tian decides to approach the girl to calm her down. Our protagonist holds Moon's face and asks if she wants to stay with him, saying that if she accepts, he will protect her, give her food, a warm place to live, and she will no longer be hurt. Determined to get stronger, Lin Tian tells the girl that he always keeps his promises, but they are too weak to fight, and he begs her to help him get stronger. Excited by the chance of no longer being hurt by those hideous little monsters, Moon asks the boy how they could improve themselves. Lin Tian informs the girl that if she is willing to have children with him, it will make him stronger, and he will fulfill his promise to protect her. Confused and embarrassed, Moon tells the boy that she has never mated with a male. Determined to convince her, our boy tells the girl that if she accepts, she won't need to worry, he will take care of everything. Then something unexpected happens. Quickly, Lin Tian approaches and kisses Moon. Then, our protagonist holds the girl's hands with the intention of initiating an intimate moment. Willing to help her friend get stronger, Moon begs Lin Tian to let her have his babies. As they try to have children, the system informs the reincarnated one that they will have 7 children, and this will increase his level limit. It is then also informed that due to the level limit increase, the boy received +9 attack, +100 health, and +10 defense in his stats. Then Lin Tian appears with a completely different physique. After the enhancements, our boy checks his strength status. Excited and muscular, the boy says that not only has he leveled up, but he has also changed his physical form, and now they have a better chance of defeating the goblin priest. Shortly after, Lin Tian gets rid of the clothes that no longer fit him. Our protagonist comforts his new companion and tells her that she now belongs to him, and he will protect her as promised, while Moon, with a loving gaze, calls him gentle. At that moment, the couple becomes alert as they hear the goblins' cries for help while searching for iron ore. Then a huge magic wolf appears, attacking one of the little monsters running desperately, holding something in its arms. Lin Tian is surprised to see that the goblins managed to find iron ore, but the boy is also worried as they have encountered trouble. Fulfilling his promise to protect his companion, our boy asks her to wait, while he heads toward the magic wolf. At that moment, the massive beast is about to devour a little monster. Meanwhile, our boy quickly rushes toward the beast. Demonstrating his agility and strength with his very sharp dagger, Lin Tian attacks and strikes the wolf's neck, saving the goblin holding the ore. After being saved, the little monster stops and looks desperately. Then we see that Lin Tian managed to defeat the wolf with just one blow from his powerful dagger. At that moment, we see that our protagonist absorbed the magical power of the beast after defeating it, and congratulates the goblin for finding the ore. Lin Tian tells the little monster that the quality of the material is good and orders them to find more, informing them that when they return, they will forge the weapons. After finding all the ore they needed, the group returns to the village. Upon arriving at the tribe, the goblins are amazed to realize that Lin Tian really made an effective weapon. At that moment, our boy demonstrates how his creation is capable of defeating even beasts. Then Lin Tian presents to the leader and the goblins a spear made from iron ore that was collected in the forest. Excited, one of the little monsters, now looking different after becoming stronger from the hunt, tells the tribe that he saw the boy defeat a magic wolf, saving them. Next, in an attempt to win the goblins' trust, Lin Tian raises the spear and asks if they want that powerful weapon, and everyone shouts that they do. At that moment, the tribe's chief appears concerned about the boy's success. Taking control of the situation, the leader strikes his staff on the ground. Then the priest tells Lin Tian that he indeed did not lie. The chief praises him for truly being able to make iron weapons. Trying to prove that the boy is not a hero, the leader tells Lin Tian that if he wants to stay in the tribe, it won't be easy, and he will have to make 50 more of those spears in just 2 days. After the chief demands an almost impossible quantity of weapons in such a short time, the goblins begin to say how much worse he is, comparing him to humans. Next, Lin Tian seems pleased to realize that his plan to win over the little monsters is working. To the leader's surprise, our boy manages to deliver the 50 spears as ordered. Lin Tian informs the chief that all the weapons were made and delivered on time, while the goblins celebrate the boy's success. Apparently happy to see that the boy completed the nearly impossible mission, the leader praises him again. Then the priest tells the goblins that everyone will eat meat to celebrate Lin Tian's entry into the tribe, making the little monsters ecstatic. Everything was going according to the boy's plan. Everyone was happy to be able to savor an abundance of meat. At that moment, Lua hands a piece of roasted meat to Lin Tian, saying that it is especially for him and that it was an offering from the priest himself. So, our boy accepts and begins to enjoy the gift from the tribe's leader. However, something seems to go wrong, and the boy starts to feel unwell. Worried, Lua asks Lin Tian if he is okay as the boy chokes after eating the meat. Quickly, the tribe's chief approaches the pair, leaving the girl terrified. The treacherous leader arrives, calling Lin Tian stupid for trusting him and saying that he noticed the boy was ambitious and that challenging his authority would only lead to death. Next, the chief puts his hand on Lua's head. Holding the girl and believing Lin Tian was too weak to defend her, the priest asks the boy if he really cares about that female. Realizing that the boy cared for Lua, the leader tells him to enjoy watching her neck being cut, calling her a traitor. Determined to kill the girl to teach Lin Tian a lesson, the chief says he will do it to ensure the boy no longer boasts in his presence. It seems that Lua's end has truly arrived, facing the sharp claws of the tribe's priest. However, unexpectedly, Lin Tian rises and quickly strikes the chief's arm, leaving everyone surprised and saving his companion. At that moment, the leader, who was so confident, appears terrified, trying to understand how the boy, weakened by the poison, managed to do that. Sarcastically, our protagonist mocks the old man, calling him stupid and treacherous for falling into his trap. Lin Tian tells the priest that he already knew he would poison him, and that he was just playing along with his act, making him believe it. Realizing he was deceived by the boy, the old man becomes furious. Missing an arm and determined to finish off Lin Tian, the leader charges at the boy while our boy prepares to defend himself. Showing great agility, the boy manages to dodge the old man's attack easily and delivers another blow to the tribe's chief. It seems that the reign of the tyrannical leader of that goblin tribe has come to an end, and Lin Tian, with his super sharp dagger, will be his executioner. Then, after dodging the old man's attack, our boy counterattacks, cutting off the treacherous rat's head. And so, the tyranny of that old goblin comes to an end. Witnessing their leader being decapitated, all the little monsters become desperate, unsure of what will happen next. Then Lin Tian approaches the goblins, who grow more and more frightened, and says something important. Our protagonist tells the little monsters that from that moment on, he will be the new leader of that tribe. Lin Tian informs the goblins that he will lead them to attack the elves and humans. Raising his powerful dagger, our boy tells the little monsters that they will always have meat under his leadership. Then, the goblins become ecstatic with the promises of their new chief and begin to cheer for him. Finally, Lin Tian points to the old man's body and offers it to his soldiers as a celebration gift. Quickly, the little monsters begin to die while running toward the treacherous deceased. Irrational and hungry, the goblins devour the body of the former cruel leader. Determined, Lin Tian says that conquering the tribe of little monsters was just the beginning of his revenge. Next, he will make the elves breed a stronger generation for his tribe. However, something seems to be watching them stealthily, hidden in the bushes. Then we see a beautiful elf spying around the forest, surprised to witness all those events. At this moment, a fascinating structure appears in a tree, with many goblins hanging as a warning to intruders. A girl is happy to see that her princess has returned home. Then, we discover that the spy is actually an elven princess, and the girl tells her to wait because her matriarch is busy, but the young princess says she has an urgent report. Next, the princess opens the door to her mother's chambers, saying she has something important to report about the eastern magical forest, and she is met with something unexpected. Upon entering, Kasana sees the queen being flirted with by several male elves. At that moment, the princess is extremely embarrassed to witness that scene of her mother in mischief while danger is approaching. Then, before Kasana can leave the room, the queen asks her to wait and tell her what was so urgent that made her enter like that. Once again, the princess tells her mother that she has an important report about the goblin tribe in the forest. Curious and arrogant, the queen asks her daughter what could be so urgent about weak and dirty creatures, referring to the little monsters. Next, the princess informs her mother that she found a large black bear devoured in the magical forest and doesn't believe goblins killed it. Kasana also tells the queen that a few days ago, she saw the former leader of the little monsters tribe being finished off by a mysterious young man and wonders if this might be related. It seems that the princess's mother only paid attention to the mention of a new village leader. Arrogantly, the queen orders her daughter to take some elf soldiers and organize an operation to deal with any possible danger, and she tells her not to kill them all at once. While stroking a male elf, the seductive and beautiful elf leader tells Kasana that goblin hearts are valuable ingredients for potions used in the tribe. Once again, the princess is very embarrassed by her mother and replies that she understands the importance of keeping some little monsters alive. Then the mischievous queen tells her daughter that she has worked hard lately, and will reward her with an elf to satisfy her, or if she prefers, she can choose even more. Next, the princess, extremely embarrassed by her mother's suggestive proposals, leaves the room, saying that she will investigate during the night and report back if anything happens. Planning the attack, the goblins, using branches as a reference, create a map and inform Lin Tian that the Forest of 1,000 Wonders has around 30 tree houses. Pleased with the good work of his best soldier, the new leader says that when they conquer the elves, he will be rewarded with 2 elf girls, making him euphoric. Excited by the chief's promises, Lin Tian's right-hand man informs him that he will order the other goblins to prepare their weapons. Then the new tribe leader begins executing his attack strategies. Following the information provided by his right-hand man, Lin Tian calculates that there are 2 elves in each house, and a total of 70, including 10 who are in the mines. In order to make his tribe stronger, our boy tells the goblins that from now on, they will hunt in the magical forest, making everyone jump for joy. This way, Lin Tian is able to increase his attributes more quickly and gain a wider variety of acquired skills. Likewise, the goblins become stronger by carrying out hunts in the magical forest. Tirelessly, Lua and Lin Tian hunted magical monsters, accumulating different abilities and gradually increasing their strength. At this point, the goblins use group attacks to capture larger beasts, and collectively gain status. With the little monsters devouring ability, the tribe gained many abilities, raising their overall level to 18 and their total power to 250. Strategically, Lin Tian conducts an analysis and concludes that each elf has about 200 strength. Thus, our protagonist states that the total power of the goblin tribe has already surpassed that of the elves overall. Being cautious because they are invading enemy territory, Lin Tian decides to use the system to simulate an attack and analyze the results. After the boy's request, the goblin life simulation is initiated. Our boy leads the goblin army, which has had a great increase in strength, to attack the elves with great confidence in the success of the attack. Due to Lin Tian's overconfidence, the group of little monsters falls into an ambush, and all are trapped in a snare, being finished off. Our protagonist is captured by the matriarch of the elves and hanged in the Forest of 1,000 Wonders as a warning to the other goblins. Summarizing, the system informs that Lin Tian thought he had everything under control, but in reality, he was in the palm of his enemy's hands. In disbelief, the boy cannot believe this outcome after the simulation's information. At that moment, Lin Tian realizes that the goblin tribe was being monitored all the time, and for this reason, the elves were able to set the ambush. Strategically, the new leader tells the soldiers that the little monsters have keen hearing and smell and asks everyone to focus on finding clues about the spy. Soon after, the boy is able to detect something hidden in the forest. Using his magical power, our boy finds the spy behind a tree. On a beautiful moonlit night, without realizing that her location was identified, the princess and her soldiers retreat quickly, intending to inform the matriarch about a possible attack. Then, several glowing arrows fly toward the fugitives. Surprisingly, one arrow hits the princess squarely in the buttocks. Kasana then screams in desperation, unable to believe she was captured. Shortly after, she falls to the ground. Our beautiful princess is frightened to realize that she is paralyzed by the arrow, as are her soldiers, while the goblins praise Lin Tian for hitting an elf. Concerned, our boy wonders if the prisoner's body looks strange due to the poison. Sarcastically, Lin Tian tells the princess that he didn't think it would be so easy to capture them. Happy that the plan is going better than expected, our boy tells Kasana that they arrived at just the right time. Then, the new goblin leader orders that all the elf prisoners be brought to him at the tribe. At the village, one of the little monsters yells to throw water on the elf, announcing that the boss had arrived. At this moment, we see Kasana completely debilitated. Lin Tian approaches the princess. Our boy says that apparently, goblin body fluids have a special paralyzing and arousing effect on females, increasing their chances against the elves, which is a matriarchal society. Furious and very weak, the princess asks how filthy creatures dare capture her, and even plan to attack the elven tribe. Kasana tells Lin Tian that without the matriarch's mercy, all the goblins would have already been exterminated by the elves, and if they harm her, her mother will not forgive them. Sarcastic and confident in his power, our boy mocks the princess. Then the reincarnated one throws Kasana to the ground, saying that he found it interesting she talked about mercy. Lin Tian then tells the princess that the elves she speaks of and those her subordinates talk about seem very different, and that her soldiers are stupid but don't lie. At this moment, the boy tells Kasana that her tribe could have exterminated all the goblins in the forest, but there are still many alive, and he believes it is not due to mercy. Confident in victory, Lin Tian tells the princess that she doesn't need to say anything else because tonight he will lead the goblin tribe to the elves to discover the truth. Our protagonist tells the soldiers they can divide the two prisoners that were finished off and devour their abilities. Then, the leader of the little monsters looks at the princess and says what he intends to do with her. Not imagining what was about to happen, Cassandra becomes desperate, begging for mercy, but she will be the next to be subdued by the future goblin god. After playing with the princess, Lin Tian's stats increase, granting him new abilities. Back at the elven tribe, it seems that the matriarch is insatiable, and her subjects beg for rest, saying they can no longer satisfy her due to the tonic running out. Then, the mischievous queen says they should have captured more goblins the last time they went hunting. At that moment, the subjects appear exhausted from having to satisfy the matriarch's desires, while she asks another elf about Cassandra, and he informs her that she has not yet returned. The same soldier asks the tribe's mother if she wants them to search for her daughter and take the opportunity to finish off some goblins, increasing the warriors' levels. Concerned, the matriarch agrees with her subordinate, saying that he will take some soldiers to support Cassandra against the little monsters tribe. Then, someone arrives saying the queen's daughter will not return, leaving her terrified without knowing who it is. At that moment, in the darkness, Lin Tian appears, shooting arrows toward the queen. The matriarch's soldier is struck directly in the forehead. Desperate, the queen manages to catch the arrow before it hits her. Accompanied by his loyal soldiers, Lin Tian tells the queen that he captured her daughter, and that soon Cassandra will bear his children. Sarcastic, our boy tells the matriarch that now they will be family. Brave, the queen seems unwilling to surrender easily, and decides to grab a sword. In an attempt to defend her people, the matriarch asks Lin Tian what he did to her daughter. Then the boy mocks the queen once again. Enraged, the matriarch moves toward the boy, stating that she will finish him off. Effortlessly dodging the attack of the shameless queen, Lin Tian informs her that the elf tribe is already surrounded and that if she surrenders, she might be treated well. Then, the beautiful elven matriarch is paralyzed by the goblin's poison. Lin Tian informs the queen that the arrow that hit her was coated with the little monster's fluid, which causes paralysis in elves, advising her to stay still. At that moment, the lustful matriarch realizes she was easily captured. Lin Tian tells the queen that he heard her talk about upgrade tools and excitement tonics, discovering that this was the purpose of the goblins for the elves. Facing the blade of her future master, the matriarch believes she is now before the new leader of the little monsters tribe, as mentioned by Cassandra, whom she had dismissed. Next, the queen is frightened by the sounds of cries for help outside her treehouse, and Lin Tian tells her that the time to decide is running out. Then the boy leads the mother of the tribe to the window, showing her that he is not joking, and tells the matriarch that this is the time for them to discuss cooperation. At that moment, the queen is incredulous at what is happening outside her chambers. The elves begin screaming, pleading with the mother of the tribe to save them, saying they don't want to be taken by the goblins, leaving the matriarch increasingly desperate. Furious, the queen asks Lin Tian what he has done to her village, and the boy informs her that, at that moment, the little monsters are no longer weaker than the elves. Our boy tells the matriarch that when her tribe was strong, they would kill the goblins, and it's only natural that the little monsters would seek revenge when they became stronger. Then Lin Tian says that he needs more strong goblin warriors, which is why he still needs the elves, and what will happen to them after they are used depends only on the attitude of the tribe's mother. Finally, the shameless queen surrenders, begging for mercy, asking that her children be spared and allowed to live. The matriarch definitively kneels before Lin Tian. Our beautiful queen agrees to stay and let her elf women bear children with the goblins, thus strengthening them. Now in the village of the little monsters, Cassandra is devastated to see that even her mother was captured by the goblins, while the queen apologizes to her daughter for not believing in the possibility of their defeat. At that moment, the matriarch informs her that only women and defenseless children remain to preserve the elf lineage. Then the queen says that all the elf women have already played with the goblins. Calming her daughter, the matriarch says that from that moment on, they can only survive within the tribe of little monsters. Being reasonable, Lin Tian informs the queen and her daughter that he will take care of everyone, providing 3 meals a day, but if they have bad intentions, they should not blame him for being cruel and finishing them off. Thinking about the well-being of her tribe, the matriarch responds that she understands the message. Next, the queen tells Lin Tian that she has a request to make, saying that all of them are her children, and asking the boy if she could take care of them. At that moment, Lua appears, struggling to care for so many elf and goblin children. Lin Tian understands that the matriarch behaves this way due to the infinite maternal love attribute that elves possess. Lua calls the tribe leader, saying she cannot take care of all those children alone. Then Lin Tian decides to grant the matriarch's request and lets her care for the elf children, knowing that those babies would bring considerable strength to the tribe in the future. Aiming to strengthen himself, our boy uses the system to view the status. Analyzing the statistics, Lin Tian wonders if his qualification has already been unlocked to the highest level because recently the values he obtained were converted into attributes. At that moment, our boy concludes that now he only needs to continue having children to directly increase his power. Looking at his tribe and seeing that everything is going as planned, Lin Tian is certain that his current strength is already enough to finally defeat Loader. Gradually, more elf babies with goblin-like appearances are being born. However, the elf women feel disgusted after the birth of their children, asking for those terrifying little monsters to be taken away from them. Our protagonist asks Lua how many babies have been born so far, and the girl responds that it's between 30 and 40. Then Cassandra appears, desperate and in great pain. Lin Tian seems concerned because the princess is pregnant with his child. Quickly, our boy approaches the girl who screams in pain from childbirth while the queen tries to help her daughter, begging the princess not to give up. Desperate and fearing for the life of her firstborn, the matriarch pleads with Lin Tian to help the girl give birth, as this is her first time having a baby. With the intention of helping and also concerned for the well-being of the princess and her child, the boy asks Lua to open the princess's legs. Seeing that the boy was about to help her daughter stop suffering, the matriarch asks him if he really knows how to deliver a baby, and he replies that he knows enough. However, Cassandra, not believing that Lin Tian is capable of helping her, says she doesn't want him to touch her. Then our protagonist, irritated with the girl, orders her to shut up, saying that the children are his too. Finally, the boy successfully delivers the baby, informing them that the princess is fine. After helping with the birth of the babies, Lua praises Lin Tian for being incredible and saving Kasana's life, but the boy humbly says it was no big deal. Then something catches the couple's attention as they hear screams coming from another cage. Lin Tian finds the goblins in a frenzy over an elf who was asking for help because she had just given birth. At that moment, something unexpected happens. Holding his dagger and accompanied by the matriarch, Lin Tian quickly goes to the cage where the goblins were trying to take the elf by force and orders them to stop. Our protagonist says they must wait until the females fully recover. Otherwise, they will face the consequences. At that moment, the boy orders that from now on, each elf will receive an extra portion of fruit, beyond the usual amount. Impressed by Lin Tian's actions, the matriarch says he really is different from common goblins, and he replies that the better they behave, the better their treatment will be. Once again, our boy decides to use the simulation to visualize how his revenge plan would unfold after that moment. Then, he is informed that after much effort, Lin Tian conquered the tribe of elves and impregnated all the elf women, who gave birth to goblins with stronger attributes. Next, seeing the increase in the village members, the boy decides to seek revenge against Loader and the others, and he infiltrates Bright Town alone and locates the group. After the simulations, the system offers 3 options to our protagonist, each with different scores evaluated after completion. Lin Tian wonders if he really found them and recalls that his current strength is nearly the same as Loader's, and he cannot underestimate his companions. Believing that his current attributes allow him to easily defeat Loader, our boy decides to test option 1 of the simulation, which is to act alone against the enemies. Then, the system informs him that Lin Tian finally finds Loader and almost finishes him off, but at that moment, the captain's master appears. Unfortunately, the human sword saint saves Loader, and the boy is finished off by his enemy's savior, after which the group returns to the capital and is never seen again. In summary, when facing the sword saint, there was no chance of escape, and Lin Tian realizes he will need to be more cautious from that moment on. At this moment, the boy is perplexed by the information obtained from the simulation, trying to understand why such a powerful force would appear in such a small place. Then Lin Tian looks at the matriarch and is increasingly convinced that he needs to hurry with his maximum strengthening. Our protagonist sees no other way and decides to act. Lin Tian informs Lua that he needs to go to human territory for a few days, and she will be responsible for the tribe, but the queen is worried in case the boy gets killed. Then the leader tells the matriarch that she knows about his feud with the humans, and unexpectedly, the elf mother informs the boy that she could cast a stealth spell on him. Satisfied, Lin Tian tells the queen that this is exactly what he was hoping she would say, and he is excited about his allies' spontaneous help. Our boy tells the matriarch that he didn't expect her to care about his safety, and she says she is only afraid that if he dies, the goblins will be left without a leader. Thinking about the welfare of her people, the queen reminds Lin Tian that all his children are in that village and that if he returns alive, everyone will be safe. Lua, accompanied by the matriarch, tells our protagonist that she will take good care of the tribe in his absence while the boy heads toward his goal. Now in Bright Town, the people walk calmly as some soldiers patrol the area. It seems to be a patrol team ensuring the security of the area. Upon witnessing so many soldiers guarding the city, Lin Tian wonders if the Sword Saint has already arrived. However, our boy remembers that he spent the entire day gathering information and heard no news about her. Our protagonist finds all this patrolling strange. Then, Lin Tian notices that some people are heading to the same place. Quickly, the boy goes there. Then he finds people looking at the ranking of adventurer teams in the Bright City. At this moment, we see that Loader is at the top of the leaderboard. Lin Tian wonders if Lord Loader has progressed in strength to be ranked first among adventurers. Our protagonist sees that he needs to hurry and find more clues, otherwise, his revenge plan will fail. While passing by a tavern, the boy hears someone saying that everyone can drink on him, and that they will drink until they can't anymore. Then something catches the boy's attention, and he stops quickly, recognizing that voice. Satisfied for finally having found his target, our boy smiles. Upon entering the tavern, Lin Tian sees Loader drinking as if he had no worries. At this moment, one of Loader's companions begins praising him for, along with Freya, saving him from the four-armed monkey, and the woman emphasizes how incredible the captain is. Then, a member of the Bashi team tells the man that it's ridiculous to brag about something as small as such a weak little monster. Furious, Loader's companion orders the guy to leave and stop talking nonsense. Like two children, the Bashi member tells the man that even though he's on a hero team, he will still beat him up. Impatient, the tavern owner says that recently the dragons entered mating season and are capturing livestock, and if they are as strong as they claim, they should stop it. At that moment, this information grabs Lin Tian's attention, who was drinking discreetly. Then, the man reinforces that if the evil dragons attack Bright City and the capital doesn't send reinforcements in time, the adventurers won't be able to repel the horde's attacks, meaning everyone is about to face darkness. Confident, Loader decides to say that there is nothing to fear because he personally called his master, the Sword Saint, and together they will unite forces against the dragons and defeat them. All the warriors in the tavern are astonished by the captain's claims, for he has so much influence with someone so powerful. Euphoric with the information, the soldiers begin to praise Loader, saying that if they succeed, he will be named the hero of Bright City. Then the captain stands up, saying that he will offer drinks to everyone present as a pre-celebration for the arrival of the saint and for eliminating the dragons. After hearing all that information, Lin Tian sees an opportunity to strike at his enemies using the arrival of the beasts in the city and leaves the place. Loader, seeing the boy leaving the tavern even after he offered to pay for all the drinks, asks the boy if he won't stay to drink. Objective and direct, our protagonist responds that he will not. Lin Tian coldly tells Loader that there will be more opportunities in the future. Then the captain finds it strange that someone would refuse free drinks. Bright City is fully decorated, awaiting the arrival of the Sword Saint. At this moment, we see Loader approaching his master, who is meditating in a temple. Then, the captain informs the Sword Saint that the distance the evil dragon is hovering is getting closer and will likely attack the city soon. After Loader's statements, his master grabs her weapon and begins to stand up. Then, the Sword Saint asks her disciple how the task she gave him is going. Loader responds that the 10 dragon hunting beasts were made according to his master's plans, and she tells him that if something goes wrong, it will be his reputation on the line. Upon leaving the temple, the captain and the saint are met by a crowd, who are amazed to be in the presence of someone so majestic and powerful. Thinking strategically, the master tells Loader that this is a special moment, and asks why everyone is standing around and orders them to prepare for battle. Then, as predicted, something approaches Bright City. A huge flying beast appears, already holding a resident in its claws while everyone runs desperately. The saint then informs them that it is a scout dragon. At that moment, the master says that when he appears, he soon attracts the entire horde of dragons and orders Loader to take his companions and follow her to the walls. Soon after, a goblin approaches Lin Tian, informing him that a dragon has arrived in the city. The little monster tells the leader that he went to check and saw many soldiers on the wall, asking what they should do. Cold and calculating, Lin Tian informs them that the time to attack their enemies is almost upon them, but for now, they will wait. Like a true strategist, our protagonist, alongside his many high-level goblins, says it's time to enjoy the show. At that moment, several dragons head directly toward the shining city. However, unexpectedly, a beam of light strikes one of the flying beasts directly on the wing. Loader and Freya are shocked to witness what those weapons are capable of. Then, the Sword Saint, after hitting the dragon and demonstrating how to use the ballista, asks the soldier if he understands how to use it. Next, all the soldiers prepare to attack the dragons using the weapons provided by their master. Quickly, the flying beasts start falling one by one, struck by the ballistae. At this moment, the warriors begin celebrating how efficient those weapons are against the dragons. But then something catches everyone's attention. Something seemingly very powerful is approaching the shining city, and people fall to the ground, saying their heads hurt terribly. Loader and Freya are terrified, seemingly knowing which monster is coming. Finally, we see the golden and purple mother dragon, while the soldiers are left in shock, stating that those weapons won't be enough to defeat her. With her eyes fixed on the city, the beast appears furious. Then, the mother of dragons prepares to launch a powerful attack. Quickly, the immense beast releases a blast of fire against the wall. At that moment, all the soldiers using the dragon-slaying ballistas start running, saying the city will fall. But something unexpected happens. A powerful magic circle appears, and someone asks them not to panic. Then, the Sword Saint steps in, declaring that she herself will fight the Mother Dragon and orders everyone else to continue defending the city. Surprisingly, the Master creates an enormous protective field using the magic of her sword. At that moment, we see that the barrier created by the Saint not only protected the city from the Mother Dragon's attack but also prevented the other beasts from attacking the wall. Lin Tian, cautious and waiting for the right moment to strike, watches the battle from atop a mountain. Our protagonist isn't surprised that the Saint managed to defend the city from the Mother Dragon's attack, given her stats. However, he admires the immense power that the massive beast demonstrated upon arriving and attacking the city. At that moment, Lin Tian examines the impressive stats of the Sword Saint and discovers why she was able to neutralize the Mother Dragon's attack without much difficulty. Then, our boy emphasizes that Loder's master is indeed very powerful and feels relieved that it won't be necessary to fight her for his revenge. Lin Tian states that the Mother Dragon is weaker than the Saint but has superior endurance. Our protagonist says that even though the master managed to strike the beast with her sword, she won't be able to defeat her easily. Seeing that the Saint is occupied fighting the Mother Dragon, Lin Tian says this is the golden opportunity he had been waiting for. Determined, our boy declares that the chance to finally take revenge on the human race has arrived and orders the goblins to follow the plan to infiltrate the city. While the capital is being invaded by dragons, they have no idea another danger is lurking. Loder says those flying beasts are difficult to deal with, but he thanks his master's teachings, stating that thanks to his teacher, he is now a dragon slayer. Then, to Loder's surprise, a resident arrives running frantically, shouting that the goblins are invading the city. At this moment, we see the captain's team fighting the dragons, and Loder emphasizes that the little monsters are stupid, but he doesn't believe they are foolish enough to attack the capital. Then, to the brave Loder's surprise, another resident appears running with several goblins chasing her. Finally, upon seeing the little monsters, the captain finds himself in trouble. Acting like a true hero, Loder orders his companions to handle the remaining dragons while he and Ephraia deal with the goblins. At this moment, we see a little monster fleeing as he spots the capital's heroes coming toward him. Furious, Loder shouts for the little monsters not to run away. However, it seems the goblins had planned that unusual retreat. Then, finally, Loder and Ephraia are captured by the little monsters, following Lin Tian's plan. In an attempt to free them, the captain's companions shout that they are coming to save him, but they can't get close due to the number of goblins surrounding them. Unexpectedly, the vengeful Lin Tian arrives unnoticed in the middle of the battle. Loder tries to warn them of the danger approaching from behind, but before the warriors can defend themselves, Lin Tian swiftly finishes them off with his super sharp dagger. At that moment, Loder and the Sword Maiden are left in despair, witnessing a goblin defeat their companions with such agility. Sarcastically, our boy approaches the two prisoners, mocking them, saying he couldn't believe they were captured so easily. Brave and furious at seeing his warriors being defeated, Loder yells that he will finish off all the filthy goblins. However, Lin Tian kicks the captain, telling him to take a better look around and stop talking nonsense. Then, our boy orders the little monsters to take Loder and Ephraia through the sewers and out of the city, while the rest follow them to the walls to destroy the crossbowmen. In the midst of a battle against the Dragon Mother, the Sword Saint hears cries for help coming from the capital and can't believe the goblins are attacking at that moment. Next, that immense and dark beast mocks Loder's master, saying they are in trouble. At that moment, the Dragon Mother and the Sword Saint are engaged in an exhausting battle. Demonstrating her power and mocking the Queen of the Beasts, Loder's master asks if she's having difficulty and attacks her fiercely, putting her in danger. Dominating the battle, the Saint says the Dragon Mother is practically defeated and wonders if the warriors have already dealt with the dragons and goblins. Then, a massive explosion occurs at the wall. All that chaos in the city catches the attention of the Saint, and the Dragon Mother, who is about to be defeated, says the little monsters arrived at a good time. Noticing that the savior of Bright Town is distracted, the Queen of the Dragons quickly flees. As she escapes, the Mother of the Beasts tells the Saint that when she recovers, she won't forgive her, leaving the powerful warrior furious for allowing that enormous beast to escape. Filled with anger for not being able to finish off the Dragon Queen, the savior of Bright Town says that sooner or later, she will go to the Dragon Island and eliminate them all. After all the chaos in the city comes to an end, the Saint returns to the ground, irritated to see that Loder and his group weren't even able to eliminate simple goblins. Then, one of the warriors informs the city's savior that the captain and Ephraia were captured by the little monsters. Next, the Sword Saint is incredulous after hearing the information. The warrior tells his savior that those goblins were not normal. At that moment, a member of the captain's group tells the Saint that the little monsters were as strong as the great races, and not even Loder could defeat them. Furious and thinking about rescuing her warriors, the city's savior declares that she will go to the enchanted forest to exterminate all the goblins. However, a local resident grabs the saint's arm, begging her to stay in the city, because if the dragons or the little monsters return to attack, they will be finished. Then, everyone starts begging the savior to stay, saying they are citizens of the temple and the empire and must also be protected by her. At that moment, the sword saint agrees with the residents that she should protect them, in comparison to a member of the heroes group, because that is her real responsibility. Back at the goblin village, everyone starts celebrating upon seeing that the tribe's leader has returned. The little monsters of the tribe are astonished to see that Lin Tian has returned with human prisoners. Without mercy, the holy maiden is thrown to the ground. At that moment, one of Lin Tian's soldiers orders the prisoners not to cause any trouble. Loder is surprised to see that the goblins had captured several elves. Meanwhile, Ephraia comments that she believes there is a hero in that tribe. Loder asks his companion if she has already recovered, and the girl responds that the poison in her body is strong, but her sacred constitution will soon be complete. Upon hearing Ephraia talk about her powers, Lin Tian sneaks up, mocking the girl, saying he didn't imagine she could recover so quickly. At that moment, the girl enters a state of despair, asking our boy how he knows her name and what his intentions are in capturing them. With a dark look, Lin Tian approaches the holy maiden. With deep hatred in his heart, our protagonist digs his claws into the girl's thigh. Next, Ephraia screams desperately in pain while Loder watches helplessly. Then the captain yells at Lin Tian to stop torturing his companion. But upon yelling at the leader of the goblin tribe, the brave Loder is struck by a little monster. Furious with Lin Tian, the captain asks him if he is aware of the consequences of capturing them, warning that the sword saint will find them and exterminate them. Confident, our boy says that Loder's master will also become his prey, and that he is just waiting for the right moment. Even if she tries to find them, she never will. Continuing with his plans, Lin Tian informs the Goblin Quan that he will be responsible for everyone from the second generation and orders them to go to the forest to hunt some monsters. Certain that he would be hunted by humans, our boy decides to hasten his evolution and conduct an interrogation with Loder, pressing his foot on his chest. Lin Tian asks the captain if they enjoy capturing goblins and torturing them in secret as they did to him in another life. Loder then seems unaware of what the boy is talking about. But Lin Tian gets irritated and says the captain is responding too slowly and decides to take action. With great hatred in his heart, our boy cuts off his enemy's ear, and Loder curses him, saying it hurts a lot. Consumed by rage, the captain tells Lin Tian that everything they do is to protect the human race and that their duty is to exterminate goblins, which are cursed creatures. Sarcastically, the boy mocks Loder's statements, saying they probably hunt the little monsters to increase the hero group's stats. Demonstrating that he knows them well, Lin Tian says that finishing off prisoners along with the monsters is easier than saving them, and he asks how many humans have already died because of this so-called justice. At that moment, Loder seems truly surprised by the boy's accusations. Ephraia, already very weakened, is also incredulous, wondering how a simple goblin knows so much about what they do. Completely consumed by hatred, Lin Tian tells the two of them that, unlike them, he doesn't need to pretend, and because he is an evil creature, he will teach his enemies a lesson. Practically powerless, Ephraia begs Loder to save her. At that moment, the girl starts pleading for mercy. Loder falls into despair as he watches his companion being tortured. Then Lin Tian tells the saintly maiden that at this moment he will return her own words to her, and that the lesson is only just beginning. He tells her she better hold on tight. Our protagonist then grabs the prisoner by the neck and says he wants her captain to watch what will be done to her. Darkly, Lin Tian hands Ephraia over to the goblins and says he wants to see how much she can endure after being tortured by them all. At that moment, Loder is in disbelief, realizing he will be forced to watch his companion be tortured without being able to help her. Then all the little monsters begin to approach the saintly maiden as the leader had ordered. Afterward, a goblin arrives, telling another that it is now his turn to guard the prisoner. The little monster who had been the guardian informs him that Lin Tian ordered her to be kept alive. At that moment, we see how weakened Ephraia became after all the torture, and the guard says she is still fine as ordered. Loder asks his companion to hold on, and the very weak girl tells the captain that he doesn't need to worry because she's not suffering. Then the prisoner is reprimanded by the guard, who says he has no right to speak, pressing his head down with his foot. Meanwhile, as the queen of the elves takes care of her baby, she asks her daughter if Lin Tian truly holds a grudge against humans, and the girl emphasizes that they are indeed in trouble. Upon hearing the elven mother's doubts, Lu arrives, informing her that the boy had already mentioned that he would take revenge on humans, and for this reason, he likely does hold a grudge. Fascinated by Lin Tian, the queen of the elves highlights how determined he is and that he never lets an offense go unanswered, which is why he is the most special goblin she has ever seen. Enchanted by Lin Tian, the elf queen highlights how determined he is and that he never lets an offense go unanswered, which makes him the most special goblin she has ever seen. The elf blushes and thinks that even in that regard, he is powerful, and it felt strange to her, as if she wanted to be conquered by him even more. Meanwhile, in another location, a goblin is talking to the MC, informing him that the second-generation elves who went hunting have returned. They had returned earlier than expected, and were carrying multiple prey on their backs. The frantic goblin informs the chief that they were back. He is at level 33 and already has attributes so developed that they almost match those of the MC. He is impressed. The MC asks why they returned so early. Was the hunt that successful? He says they killed all the monsters nearby and could only go west in the forest, but they found goblins massacring other tribes. The MC asks which tribe in the west was being massacred by the larger goblins. Another goblin says it was the Blood Fawn tribe. When they divided the teams to find monsters, they ended up finding several tribes with their mark. The MC finds it interesting that all of them are large goblins. Capturing their leader would be excellent for the resistance plan against the humans. The captured captain starts laughing, calling them fools. Did they still dare to dream? They would be swiftly defeated by the knights. The MC turns and says that if he hadn't opened his mouth, he wouldn't have even remembered the existence of humans. The goblins approach the captain, but the MC says there was still another human there. The captain desperately asks what they were planning. A goblin is grabbing the human's face by the mouth, saying that finally, it was his turn, and the human's skin was too soft, making the captain desperate. Evelia is silent, forced to watch the entire scene. A few hours later, the captain is exhausted, lying face down, practically unconscious. Night falls, and a goblin asks Lin Tian if they are going to attack the big goblin's tribe, to which he confirms that they are, and that they will capture their leader. He even had a new name for the tribe, Sky Mad Tribe. The goblins start shouting and celebrating, calling him powerful. The tribe now has a name, and they start chanting it incessantly. An elf says they must be very strong since they defeated so many tribes. But the protagonist says not to worry because he has confidence. He still has a trump card he hasn't used yet. And with that statement, we see Evelia tied up and nearly fully unclothed. The next day, we see the protagonist watching from somewhere with a very good view. He could see everything perfectly. It was time to see their power. He was aiming at the Blood Fawn tribe in the enchanted forest. There were indeed many large goblins, but he thought it was possible to deal with all of them. He sees the leader approaching and notices that the goblins seem very afraid. In fact, it was impressive. The leader of the Blood Fawn tribe was, in fact, a goblin hero. The MC notices that he doesn't seem that powerful. With a combat power of 900, a dozen goblins would be enough for him, but capturing him alive would be difficult. The paralyzing poison wouldn't be as effective on a guy as big as him, so he would have to think of another solution. He speculates that if he could use the imprisonment magic that Evelia used on him on that guy, then he decides to go see her. Back at the Sky Mad tribe, a goblin approaches Lin Tian and says he did as ordered. The human was almost done, and the MC congratulates the goblin on a job well done. The girl begs to be freed from sight because she would redeem herself before the Lord. The MC wipes her wounds with a warm cloth, and she asks who he is, not yet looking back. When she turns and sees the protagonist, she starts screaming for him not to come closer, trembling. She screams that she was going insane, that he was a demon. She felt so much pain. The MC slaps her face, grabs her by the back, and gives her a hug, saying that the punishment was over. She cries, asking if it was true. He pulls away from the hug, saying that he keeps his word, but she needed to choose her belief. She asks what belief, and he replies that it was to choose between believing in God, or believing in him, becoming his pet and escaping the endless pain. He says this while caressing the top of her head, and she trembles. Evelia had already made her decision, as the next moment she takes a deep breath, and begins to lick the protagonist's fingers. And he says, "Very well, Evelia," while caressing her face. Lin Tian says that, from now on, he will be her only master, and she will be called his little pet. Evelia is on all fours, barking and calling the MC her master. He picks her up, and takes her to a hot spring. He removes her clothes, and bathes her. The pleasure of the bath makes her say she will do anything for him because he is kind to her. He says that's perfect, continuing to bathe her. Then, the protagonist says he wants to see Evelia using the Holy Light Prison ability, and she asks what that is. He shows her a book after the bath, and she asks if the Holy Prison is what's in it. Evelia focuses, begins to pray. Her body levitates slightly as she begins channeling the power, and then a gigantic prison appears before her. The MC is impressed by Evelia's power. They are walking through the tribe's prison. The captain senses their presence while he's imprisoned, and starts yelling for Evelia to attack the MC and heal his body as soon as possible. The MC says she surrendered to him willingly, and the captain doesn't believe it. She was the daughter of the holy church leader and wouldn't give in so easily. The MC commands her to kneel and says she's doing all this of her own free will, and she obeys immediately, kneeling and smiling at him. The captain becomes desperate upon seeing this scene. He leans against the bars, grinning and drooling with rage, saying that his actions will make the goblin race disappear from the world. The sole purpose of the goblin race's existence was to be exterminated by humans. The Holy Church would eliminate them all. Lin Tian didn't expect this to be Evelia's identity, so he thanks the captain for this information and orders the goblins to give him plenty of trouble. He calls Evelia to leave. Now it was time to take care of other business. They are leaving, and the MC says they will take control of the Blood Fang tribe. Already at the place where the tribe is hiding, a goblin is talking to the chief, reporting that everything is ready, trembling with fear in front of the leader. The chief stands up, saying they will attack the tribe to the south. They will capture all the elves and have fun with them, and the goblins start to get excited, shouting about their chief's power. Someone yells for the chief, saying a goblin invaded the tribe and is looking for him. The chief turns, asking where this inferior goblin came from. The MC approaches, saying he is a heroic-level Blood Fang goblin with intelligence similar to humans, and he's there to talk to him. Some goblins ask if he's some kind of mutant, but he says no, he's just a bit smarter than regular goblins. But it's not time for idle chatter. He is the leader of the Sky Mad tribe and is taking their chief with him. For the other goblins, there were only two options: submit to him, or die there. The chief asks if the MC is the head of the tribe that breeds elves. The MC says his genes are good, and invites him to come along. The hero goblin calls him an idiot, and, shouting for him to shut up, grabs the protagonist's entire head with one hand. He lifts the protagonist by the head, saying he didn't expect him to come to him. When he's done with the MC, everyone in the tribe will be his. The goblins start chanting for the chief to crush the MC, but the MC, unfazed, says the conversation is useless. If he didn't want to capture the Blood Fang tribe chief alive, he would have already finished him off. The protagonist cuts off the goblin's hand with a somersault strike, and he cries out in despair. The chief falls to the ground, clutching his arm and ordering his followers to destroy the protagonist. The goblins charge at the protagonist to avenge their chief, and Lin Tian snaps his fingers, ordering them to leave now. A knife pierces through the chest of a Blood Fang goblin. The goblins of the Sky Mad tribe begin to appear from their invisibility ability, and the enemy asks how that is possible without making any noise. The MC's servant says that's due to the Silent Steps skill, and shouts to destroy all the Blood Fang goblins, as it was an order from the chief. The enemies become desperate. Several warrior goblins had appeared, and everyone there had fallen into the MC's trap. He had used the negotiations to make them vulnerable, drawing all attention to himself. The goblins were no match for the chief, so he could escape without any issues. But even while escaping, he shouts that he has to kill the MC first, then charges forward to punch him. The MC stands with his arms crossed and simply says Evelia's name. She then begins to cast the sacred light prison. A radiant cage appears, imprisoning the goblin hero, leaving him confused about what had happened. It was a light spell, and goblins couldn't use light magic. Enraged, he witnesses a scene that shocks him. Evelia is at the MC's feet, calling him master. He praises her, saying she was a good girl and had grown even stronger after joining his side. She begins to thank him for the compliments. Some time passes, and we see the goblin hero chained with light magic, calling the MC a scoundrel, while Lin Tian tells him to be a good breeder. Back at the tribe, the goblin chief was chained to a rock, and the MC says that taming him took quite some effort. Cleaning his knife, he says he's finished, and now the goblin poses no threat. The captain is impressed by the capture of a goblin hero, and wonders how he managed such a feat. Lin Tian speaks with Lua and tells her to let the other goblins handle the artificial insemination task. She should just supervise, and she agrees. He hands Evelia over to Lua, saying that she's now under her care, and Lua agrees. He tells the elf queen to help him get ready because he's going to meet a friend. She confirms if it's really a friend, and he says yes, it's a very important friend. Judging by Loder's arrogance, human forces would arrive soon, and they might not be able to face them, so it was time to visit the Dragon Mother. The Dragon Island was at least 100 kilometers away from there, and the fastest way to reach the Dragon Island was to lure a dragon over there. The MC had left several dead oxen on the seashore to attract a dragon. It would soon appear with all that smell of blood. He was hidden inside one of the oxen, just like Luke Skywalker sheltering from the cold on Hoth. The dragon grabs the oxen with its claws and lifts off, heading back to the Dragon Island. The dragon was traveling at full speed. Then it throws the oxen it captured into a pit. The oxen hit the ground, and I have no idea how the MC didn't end up as ground meat from that fall. But he emerges from the carcasses and realizes that dragons don't hunt just for themselves. But now he only needs to find the Dragon Mother. Then something approaches him from behind, saying there was something strange mixed in with the food, startling the protagonist. The purple dragon says it recognizes the MC. He was the goblin chief who had attacked the tribe of light the other day. Why was he sneaking around her territory? Did he think the dragon wouldn't devour him? The MC asks her to wait because he wants to propose a deal. The dragon finds it interesting. There was a little goblin offering her a deal, and she begins transforming into her human form. The female dragon says that if it's something pleasing, she might decide not to devour the MC. He tells her that she also wants revenge on the Sword Saint, so he proposes an alliance between them as repayment for freeing her the other day. The dragon is amazed that such an inferior being as he dared to challenge the Sword Saint. This made her quite curious. She was almost twice the MC's size, stands beside him, and asks how he plans to defeat that woman. He replies that it's simple. They just need to send her dragons to occasionally disturb the village of light. Then she asks about them, what they would do. What could a bunch of small goblins do to challenge that crazy woman? What was his plan? She places her finger under the protagonist's chin and says that facing the Sword Saint head-on wouldn't work. He then responds that they need to attack her mind. Destroying her spirit was the best way to defeat her. The dragon mother laughs and says she understands. Using the goblins to destroy without losing any of her soldiers seemed too perfect. The protagonist then asks if they have a deal, and she says yes, but she didn't expect to find such a clever goblin like him. The more she looked at him, the more she liked him, and licking her lips, she asked if she should give him a little reward. The MC was amazed at this and realized that, apparently, female dragons were in mating season. The dragon mother noticed that the MC's body was too small for her. Since that was the case, she decided to give him another reward first. Then, looking ahead, she wondered which one she should choose. Back at the Mad Sky tribe, Loder was crucified in the middle of the tribe, while some goblins stood near him, heavily armed. It had been so long since he had been there, and the guards hadn't come to rescue him. If he didn't escape soon, he would completely lose his mind, but he didn't know how to escape. He remembered that goblins weren't very tall. If he could reach a higher point, it would be great. But he saw something that terrified him. It was a dragon. A flying dragon. He shouted at the goblins to release him quickly because he didn't want to be burned by the dragon's breath. The goblins were also frightened by the dragon, and an elf asked how it had gotten there, but another said there was someone on the dragon's back. The dragon landed in front of all the goblins, and on top of it was none other than the protagonist. He stepped down, removed his hood, and said he was back, and the goblins were impressed by his return. He told the dragon to rest right there and not to leave, and the goblins shouted that Lin Tian was incredibly amazing, celebrating with great joy. Loder was astonished, wondering if he was truly a goblin, then prayed for the Order of Knights to come and save him soon. In the City of Light, several knights were approaching the city center. They bowed before the Sword Saint, but she said that time was running out. They shouldn't think about formalities. It was time to organize a rescue plan as quickly as possible. The system notified him that he was entering a new storyline and had 3 options to choose from: continue killing monsters, create more goblins, or advance 1 month. The MC realized that the third option meant the Sword Saint wouldn't attack him for that period, so he chose it. He would gain 20 points for this. The system began the time acceleration and informed him that the corrupted forest he was in no longer generated experience points for him. He received 20 points, and the reward was 20 times his life score. A month had passed. The protagonist woke up, and the system informed him that the time passage had ended. He got out of bed and found the sensation of time passing to be very strange. The system congratulated him on reaching level 50, with a total score of 1000. His stats had increased significantly, but not his overall strength. Lua came into his room shouting, informing him that all the newborn goblins hadn't survived. This left the MC distressed. He ran out with the goblin woman, and the elves were holding the babies who had already passed on. They cried over the bodies of the babies. The protagonist asked how this had happened. He asked an elf if something had happened, and she said she didn't know what went wrong. Only 3 newborns had survived, and they were very weak. Lauder began to laugh, calling the goblins brainless fools for thinking they could raise a powerful generation. The protagonist remarked that he seemed to know the reason for the newborn's loss. Lauder said that the higher the goblin's level, the harder it was for offspring to survive. He couldn't rule the world with reproduction abilities alone. The MC thanked Lauder once again for the valuable information, even though it had come too late. He turned away and told the goblins that Lauder was all theirs, but they shouldn't finish him off too quickly. The goblins thanked him for this. Lauder shouted that he was too cruel. He would become a vengeful spirit and never forgive him. The MC thought it was too late to create a new generation of heroes, but they needed this to fight against the Sword Saint. Without them, it would be challenging. He began to wonder how he could evolve the goblins quickly. Just then, the dragon landed behind him. It approached the MC like a cat, and started using its head to nuzzle the protagonist, and he wondered what was happening with her. The dragon was entering a transformation state while in heat. This situation was very special for him, and she finished transforming. So, this was the special situation, the gift the dragon mother had left for him. The female dragon begins advancing on the MC, making him nervous. She jumps on him, throwing Lin Tian to the ground, and with a passionate look sits on his lap, licking her lips. The system alerts him that he has unlocked a new achievement, and this time his stats have increased considerably. The protagonist is recovering from the growth session he had received from the dragon. She was just one, but she was fierce and thirsty. So this was the power of dragons. He had practically become a type of hero. He could grow just by drinking her blood, but she wanted to do more with him. She appears behind him, even fiercer, saying she wasn't done with him yet. He shouts in desperation, telling her she had tasks to complete before coming back to him. She needed to give her blood to the goblins and then could return. She charges ferociously toward the goblins, who become confused and desperate. It seemed like she was about to tear them to pieces. Night falls, and the goblins are gathered around a campfire. After drinking the dragon's blood, they had evolved significantly, but they could still grow further. The protagonist is off to the side, sitting by the dragon's paws as she sleeps. He is looking at his hands, impressed with the dragon's power. Not only he, but all the other goblins had evolved into hero-class beings. However, their total power was still slightly below his expectations. It was time to acquire some equipment. He instructs the system to open the shop. While browsing the shop items, he thinks that, as the hero tribe leader, he would need strength to maintain his authority. The system shows he has 180 points to spend, which is enough for him to obtain some advanced and practical equipment. He spots an elemental crossbow that absorbs elements and can fire elemental arrows. It was small and ideal for long-range attacks. A skill called Unarmed Defense, allowing him to parry 3 weapon attacks while unarmed, cost 80 points to acquire. This skill was very powerful and could save his life in a confrontation with the Sword Saint. He decides to buy both. The system confirms that the exchange was successful, and both the item and skill are now in his inventory. The MC starts wondering aloud how these weapons will work in battle. He's eager to test them on someone. Then he spots Loader and calls him over. Loader looks desperate, already sensing what this is about. The protagonist says he is the perfect candidate. Loader asks what he is going to do now, and so he becomes the first to experience just how powerful Lin Tian, of the hero species, has become. Someone in the enchanted forest is calling for help. It's a human witch calling out, while another companion says that insignificant creatures don't interest her. She would prefer to be with the Sword Saint, hunting dragons. A third person comments that the dragon mother is a big problem, and this task was easy. He finishes by saying they shouldn't waste the opportunity that Loader gave them to gain glory. The witch notices something happening ahead and alerts the others, who prepare for battle. A giant spider appears in front of them, and the fight begins, even though the little witch is afraid of spiders. The archer lands a precise shot to the monster's head, and remarks that it was just a level 3 insect, nothing to make a fuss about. The warrior tells them to wait because something else is coming. It was a giant goblin, and it belonged to the hero species, advancing on the 3 adventurers. They comment that he seemed to be the leader. It was pretty easy to find him. They prepare for battle, already celebrating an anticipated victory, confident the mission's credit would be entirely theirs. The warrior instructs everyone to begin the attack on the goblin and to provide cover for him as the monster lets out a war roar. One of the knights asks the captain to wait a moment. He requests to take that one on himself, as he had already defeated several goblins along the way, and this would be his first hero species goblin. The captain agrees, telling him to finish it quickly. The knight then asks the captain to watch what he is about to do. He readies his spear and says he will defeat the goblin with a single blow. Using his combat skill Storm Lance, he hurls his weapon at the giant goblin's chest. He yells for the goblin to die, but they are immediately surprised afterward. The goblin had held the spear without any difficulty and looked menacingly at the 2 adventurers. How was that possible? The goblin prepared to throw the weapon back, and the captain shouted to activate the shield quickly. The spear struck right in the center of the shield, causing a massive explosion on the spot. The shield was pierced in the middle, and the adventurers were stunned by this. He had almost managed to break the shield with sheer force. If he was a physical type, then it was better to attack from a distance, so the archer prepared her attack. It was just one shot. Her arrows wouldn't miss. That's what she thought, until a hand pierced through her stomach. She looked back in desperation, and another goblin was laughing behind her. It was an assassin goblin. The archer lay on the ground after the blow, and the swordsman shouted for them to keep the formation and surround the archer in the center as quickly as possible. The witch screamed for the captain to look in her direction, and he turned around to see what it was. Several goblins of different sizes and classes were approaching the group. The scene changed, and someone was calling for help in the forest again. But this time, it was the group truly asking for help, not just bait to attract monsters. The goblins were celebrating their victory, and the humans were now theirs. One of the goblins said the witch was his. He was going to do something, but was interrupted by another who said that the spoils belonged to the tribe. The chief had said humans should be captured, but one had escaped, and he deserved nothing. The four-armed goblin shouted that they had already killed so many humans. They were strong enough to decide what to do with the spoils. The goblins there began to rebel, saying they were the strongest, and the tribe should follow what they said. One of them said the big brother was the strongest there, so they would follow him. He looked at his reflection in the sword and decided to take the spoils to the tribe first. Back at the tribe, everyone was informed that the heroes had returned. They had captured several humans. They were truly incredible. The leader of the group was named Golbutian. The protagonist was sitting, and one of the elves, looking very nervous beside him, asked if he could still control them, but he didn't respond. The four-armed goblin lifted the human captain, saying that he was his and that he was going to eat him. Lin Tian approached him, asking him to release the human he was holding because he had information he wanted. The goblin looked down, sneering at the protagonist's size, and gave an ugly smile, saying that if he wanted the human, he'd have to trade him for one of his women. The women were shocked and scared, but the protagonist raised his arm to prevent him from even thinking about approaching them. The MC looked up, anger in his eyes, asking if he knew what he was saying. The MC was his leader. The four-armed goblin then looked back and, pointing to the red-haired goblin, called him Go Bukwang, saying he was stronger than the MC, so they would follow him. The MC looked at the two goblins and asked if Go Bukwang was at the center of the rebellion. He said that if the red-haired goblin defeated the four-armed one, he would forgive him. The four-armed goblin began to laugh wildly, saying that Kwang would never obey the MC, because he was the new chief, and they would kill him to rule the tribe. At that moment, a hand gripped the four-armed goblin's head, who was startled, and when he realized it, Go Bukwang was holding his head. He was about to ask something, when blood sprayed all over the area, and both the protagonist and the elf looked a bit shocked by the scene. The four-armed goblin lay on the ground, and the other goblins were frightened. The red-haired goblin called the MC leader and said that, since he evolved, he had begun to understand many things. He was different from those arrogant fools and respected the MC, but he also believed in brute strength. He called the MC father, and said he had defeated the previous chief to become the new leader, so now, he also wanted to try. He was level 50, and his attributes were very high, with a total score of 1200. The MC began to smile and said he understood everything. The boy had the courage to challenge him with a power of 1200. Lin Tian began to emit a fiery aura and said that Kwang's growth was impressive, but was he sure he wanted to challenge him? The protagonist's aura now resembled that of a Super Saiyan. The other goblins start cheering for Go Bukwang, telling him to destroy the MC and become the new chief, so they could also take the women. The protagonist closes his eyes and says there seem to be several goblins willing to follow Go Bukwang. But before starting, he'd like to confirm something. He begins conjuring a fireball and says that if the hero-class goblins want to continue following the MC, they should come to his side immediately. Otherwise, they would be exterminated. The captain thinks the MC is a priest and is impressed. He considers escaping amid this internal conflict since he wouldn't be able to fight them there. He thinks that once the current leader dies, he can find a way to escape. Meanwhile, several goblins move to the MC's side. Kwang has made his choice in front of the MC. He wants to seek total power and draws his sword. He charges at the MC with everything he's got, but the MC dodges his strike by moving back. The captain is startled, seeing that the red-haired goblin had grown even stronger since capturing him in the forest. The MC compliments Go Bukwang's skill and places his sword in front of him. With the sword emitting a powerful flame, he challenges Go Bukwang to withstand the next blow. The red-haired goblin is alarmed, as he has never seen that weapon, and it's also very fast. He realizes he can't dodge the blow, so he decides to face it head-on and charges through the fireball. The protagonist observes this feat and realizes that the goblin is truly very resilient. Go Bukwang advances with his sword, letting out a powerful roar, and his size is more than twice that of the MC. The protagonist gives a sarcastic smile, as the red-haired goblin strike hits the ground with such force that it causes an explosion. The two humans are terrified by the scene, and the others watching, who are on the protagonist's side, are fearful of the outcome of the fight. Go Bukwang is terrified by what just happened. The MC had blocked his sword strike with only one hand. Lin Tian compliments Go Bukwang's strength once again, but it's not enough. He had used the unarmed defense skill and is now drawing his crossbow. Go Bukwang's eyes are wide open, staring at the power of the crossbow in front of him, and only a scream is heard in the end. The MC asks if he would like to continue, but he says no. Then he kneels in front of the MC with his face covered in ketchup. Lin Tian is still impressed by Go Bukwang's bravery. The other goblins start begging for their lives, saying they will never disobey him again. As they kneel and tremble in fear before the MC's power, he calls them worthless cowards, and they beg his forgiveness and swear to follow him forever. He orders Go Bukwang to stand up, and then a healing skill is used on him. Evelia is healing him, and Lin Tian says that he has courage. If he continues serving the MC, he won't kill him. Of course, he won't forgive the other traitors, so he instructs Go Bukwang to crush them all on the spot. The red-haired goblin thanks the MC for sparing his life and says he will take care of all those traitors right away. The goblins are desperate, still begging for forgiveness, as Gobu Kwang crushes them with ease. Lin Tian shouts for the other goblins to devour the traitors and grow stronger, and the goblins who remained on his side celebrate the MC's victory. The captain, shocked by the situation, wonders what trouble Loader has gotten himself into. He wasn't just any monster but something far more frightening. The MC approaches Loader's cross and apologizes for the lackluster show, asking if he really thought those useless ones would save him. He calls Loader naive, and Loader, gritting his teeth, says it's the fault of that useless sword saint who only knows how to hide in the city like a coward. He starts laughing and shouts that everyone there is useless, and what impresses him most is how he hasn't completely lost his mind from all the despair. The captain agrees that he had underestimated the MC, but he shouldn't get too excited. The sword saint would appear as soon as she defeated the dragon mother. The protagonist crouches down in front of the captain and asks if he really thinks the dragons will attack the city alone. Things are going well for him. The captain starts laughing and asks if, then, the entire squad and the City of Light are being manipulated by him. He requests a quick death, as he had already given all the information needed. He would rather die than end up in a situation similar to Loader's, so he pleads for the MC to grant this, while Lin Tian watches him in silence. The MC then says he will grant his request. Someone shouts the name, Sword Saint, twice, and she wakes up startled. Getting up from the bed, she asks why the urgency. Had the dragons been defeated? Had the knights returned? The knight says yes but starts stammering. She tells him to stop stammering and just say what he wants, and he explains that only one person from the squad had returned. The others had been annihilated. The Sword Saint stands up, startled, even though she was still in her lingerie, and I have to admit, it was quite a sight. Now fully dressed in her armor, the Sword Saint heads to the infirmary where the survivor was. He was still in terrible condition. She asks how he had been injured and wants to know about the other knights. The adventurer explains that they encountered a group of goblins from the heroic lineage and begs her to save his companions as soon as she can. Almost fainting, he asks her to be careful, as the goblins are abnormal. Then, he finally stops speaking. The healer shouts for him to hold on, and someone says it couldn't possibly be just a band of goblins. A knight with them says he doesn't care about the lineage. They would be exterminated like lower vermin are, but the saint tells him to wait. The dragon invasions have been happening more frequently. They could attack at any moment, and she couldn't handle all of this alone. She orders part of the troops to be sent and requests reinforcements to protect the City of Light. When the time is right, she will destroy the goblins and the dragon mother herself. The knight tries to protest, and the mage with them asks if there's any chance they will come back alive. Someone approaches, interrupting the conversation, saying she doesn't need to send reinforcements. They say arrogance leads to defeat, which is why the Silver Blade Order fell. The speaker was the captain of the Order of Death Knights, Kasimov. He says to leave the rescue and the hunt for the goblins to him. The Sword Saint says an entire squad had been defeated. Did he really think he could do this job alone? The man replies that in the past, he had faced 4 Titan warriors alone and survived. And even if these goblins are of the heroic lineage, they couldn't hurt him. After saying this, he removes his mask, revealing a face half burned, with a massive scar, and says they just need to wait for the good news. Back at the village, the MC asks the system to start the life simulation again. The system informs him about the Sword Saint's orders to Kasimov to attack the village, and this would be a great loss for the MC, even if he won. The MC wonders if Kasimov was truly strong enough to cause enormous destruction in the village. The system gives him 3 mission options to complete: move the village, prepare for the attack, or capture Kasimov first. He chooses the last option. He then receives the mission to engage in a battle against Kasimov. The reward would be 20 points, but before acting, the MC needs to know who he is. In the middle of the village, a loud laugh is heard, and Louder is celebrating that Kasimov has arrived. The goblins won't stand a chance against him. He says the goblins' time has come. The man had already defeated several Titan warriors, and at that moment, the MC looks back, and says he seems to have a lot of faith in this man. The MC asks what Titan warriors are. Louder replies that they are powerful warriors, created with Titan genes by the enemy kingdom, capable of tearing some monsters apart with their bare hands. According to Louder, they were all doomed, as he laughed, mocking those present. The MC says that Kasimov has a few tricks up his sleeve, and Louder continues shouting that they would be torn apart and skinned alive. Lin Tian begins to think that it might be better to be cautious. Perhaps he should send someone first to test Kasimov's abilities. In the middle of the forest, Kasimov was on horseback, following the trail left by the adventurers and goblins, but the forest was empty, which was strange. He finds the remains of the Silver Squad and comments that they're a bunch of useless fools. The smell of blood was powerful and intoxicating. It was getting Kasimov excited. Could it be that this time he would be able to enjoy destroying everything at will? He hears some cries for help behind him and turns to see who it is, wondering where the sound is coming from. He makes his horse run towards the cry for help, and when he arrives, he sees a blonde woman kneeling on the ground, unclothed and trembling. He asks the woman who she is, but receives no immediate answer. She turns her back to him, and Kasimov recognizes her features. She calls his name. It's Evelia, asking him to save her. He shouts in surprise, not expecting her to still be alive. Approaching her on his horse, he asks if Loder is still alive. She responds, crying, that she managed to escape from the goblins, but Loder is no longer with them. Kasimov then asks her to point him in the direction of the goblin tribe. She promptly replies that it's not far from there, but they're very frightening, and Kasimov feels a bit suspicious. He urges his horse toward the tribe, and Evelia shouts for him to take her away from there, but he's already far ahead, shouting back for her to handle herself alone. He still had a mission. Kasimov's profession allowed him to gain an attribute bonus whenever he was working alone and also when taking down enemies. With Loder no longer alive, Kasimov thinks this is great. It won't hinder him, and he just needs to attack them stealthily to stack up bonuses. Riding his horse, he crosses a rope that triggers a trap. Kasimov is thrown forward while his horse falls to the ground. He somersaults, managing to avoid injury from the fall. He looks back to see the source of the attack, and finds none other than Evelia coming after him, and he asks why she hasn't left yet. Evelia raises her scepter and casts her Holy Light critical strike spell, hitting Kasimov squarely. He shouts at her, asking what she's doing, and she replies that her master ordered her to defeat him. Once again, she casts a spell, this time called Sacred Impact, and strikes Kasimov directly once more. A purple smoke spreads in front of Evelia, and Kasimov conjures the Soul Devourer. He manages to grab Evelia by the hair and asks what kind of spell she'd been under to dare attack him, but she doesn't respond. Then, licking his shoulder, he says that in that case, he won't go easy on her. He didn't enjoy killing only monsters and was interested in flaying her. He points his sword at Evelia's neck, saying this was a good opportunity to stack up bonuses. Someone remarks that they understand why he dared to try exterminating them alone. The MC is behind Kasimov, holding a sword and commenting that his profession's attributes and equipment are indeed troublesome. He wields a sword with a power called Deadly Harvest, which increases critical damage by 90%. If he succeeded in a stealth attack, it would be bad for the MC. Kasimov is shocked, wondering how a low-level goblin managed to steal his sword in just an instant. Evelia runs to the MC, calling him master, and Kasimov shouts at her for lowering herself to become a slave to despicable goblins. The MC says she's an excellent servant, while patting her head. He tells Kasimov that he's a bit disappointed in him, as he thought he would be formidable. Instead, he's just a psychopath who enjoys killing. Kasimov says that, although he doesn't know how the MC discovered his attributes, he will easily deal with a despicable goblin like him. Even without his sword or passive abilities, he's fully capable of sending the protagonist to hell. Kasimov draws a dagger and charges at the protagonist, who doesn't even attempt to dodge the attack. In the next moment, two goblins appear behind the protagonist and Evelia, both well armed. And the protagonist, smiling, says that today they'll see who's going to hell first. The dragon also appears and breathes fire onto Kasimov, who is completely incinerated by this single strike. The guy speedran his way to hell, breaking all records. Our video ends here. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe to the channel. Until next time, bye bye.